Yeah.
Hey guys, my name is Tara. Some people call me Mama Sage. Today I'm going to be doing a video that's different than anything that I've done so far on my YouTube. I haven't done any kind of like cooking videos at all, and I think that's going to be changing. So I've been wanting to do this specific video for a while now. Today we're going to be making kombucha. Now this is something that I've been doing for about 1.5 years now, but over the last few months I've really slacked off and I've just been consumed with other things. So I have my scobies that I had kind of hanging out and rusting up. I have a cup right here of starter kombucha, which we're gonna need for this recipe. I've got white sugar. It's always better if you use raw cane sugar, but this is what I've got right now. That's my budget. So, and then in my little coffee pot back here, I brewed my tea, and there are 10 bags of yerba mate. That just happened to be the most basic plain tea flavor that I had on hand because I want to start, redoing the batches. So I want to have a little bit fresher of a flavor. Now, you might wonder why the kombucha in these two containers has like a pinkish or reddish tone to it. That's because I have watched a few videos on how people have made their kombucha, and I decided to alter their style and kind of make it my own. And I'm sure that you'll be able to do the same thing once you get more comfortable with making kombucha as well. Now, what I'm referring to is I've seen several people use fruit, and they will use frozen fruit or fresh fruit, and they'll mash it and put it in their kombucha to give their kombucha a specific flavor, so maybe it's raspberry or maybe it's peaches or whatever. I tried that and I didn't really like it. Like you'll hear from pretty much everybody, it leaves this funny like gummy worm consistency layer in the bottom. It's like a jelly, and it's not a scoby, it's just the fruit that's left over after the scoby has processed it. Now what I found is that if I use a flavored tea, like a fruit flavored tea, then I get the fruit flavor, so I don't have to have just a basic, black or green tea kombucha. I can have something like, I don't know, I think this one might have been like passion fruit pomegranate. So that's what I found that works for me. Once again, we're going to be doing the yerba mate today. Now, the way that I like to do my kombucha is I will brew a coffee pot. My husband and I love this tiny coffee pot. It's like the size from a hotel, because we don't drink a ton of coffee, and this Keurig came from my mother-in-law, so that was a really sweet gift from her. But we just don't drink that much. So what I like to do is I put 10 tea bags to brew, and I filled up my coffee pot, as you can see, and that's going to give me enough tea to melt the sugar for a total of 1 gallon worth of kombucha. So each of these containers is a 1/2 gallon. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to put 1/2 cup of sugar into each container. And then we're going to divide the tea evenly between the two. So we're just going to kind of eyeball it. All right. It doesn't have to be perfect, The great thing about like cooking as opposed to baking is that you kind of do it by feel. With baking, it's more of a science. So now here we are. So we're gonna mix this up to dissolve the sugar in the hot tea. And I wanted to go ahead and pull both of these containers out just for the purpose of, showing you what I do with the rest of the tea. But I'm only gonna finish one jar for the purposes of this video today. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So now what we're gonna do is we wanna add water to that. Now, we have hard water. So I filter it using a pure system on our faucet. Nothing fancy, but that's what we use for like our daily drinking water here in Tombstone. So I've already filtered these. And we're just gonna add about the amount that we want. So right now, we're looking at right around 6 cups. So we'll call that 8 cups. Now, the reason that we want to stop here is because we need to cool our tea down so that we can add the kombucha. This is called starter liquid, and it is kombucha that has already been brewed, so it's already ready to go. And what we do is we use a cup of starter kombucha, and we put that into our half-gallon container, and then we add a scoby to it. Now, this is just a touch warm, but I think it's gonna be just fine. It's not anything, it's not hot. Now, the reason that we wanna make sure that it's not hot is because if you put the scoby into hot water, it will kill your scoby. Scoby's gone. And I looked for months. I live in a small area. I don't think that kombucha is probably super popular here in this area. And so I was looking at Fry's or Kroger for months, trying to find just an original kombucha with a tiny little baby scoby in it so that I could start my own kombucha. And after months and months of searching, I just broke down and bought a couple off of Etsy. And from there I was able to start going ahead and making my own kombucha. Every time that you make a new batch, you get a new baby scoby. It's thin. I'll kind of show you what those look like. So right now we'll go ahead and add our starter booch to our container. Now that starter booch has like you know how apple cider vinegar has like the mother in it. And that's essentially what this is. It's got little particles. The scoby is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. That's what scoby stands for. And so it has just little like strings of unmatured scoby in the liquid. Okay, so now that we've added our starter booch, now I'm gonna pick a scoby out of these scobies that I had left over from whenever I was making a ton of kombucha a few months ago. Okay. All right, I think I'm gonna use this one. And the reason is because this scoby is young. It's only like a 1 batch scoby. So it's a brand new baby scoby that was made on the bottom of an already mature scoby. So we want to grow that up to be nice and healthy and strong. So we're going to put that into our new batch of kombucha. What you want to do is you just want to like stick it in there and see if you can try to get it to float on top. Now if it floats, cool. If it doesn't want to float at first, that's fine. It'll pop up. All right. Okay, so we're just gonna leave it like this for right now. Now, something that I forgot to mention is that you need to make sure that you wash your hands really well before you start. Another thing is that you don't want to, because you don't want to introduce bacteria to your scoby, to your containers, because what that's going to do is you're going to leave your kombucha alone for a few weeks. And then you're going to come back to your kombucha and there's going to be mold all over your scoby. And then your scoby is ruined and you need to buy another one, or you need to, make sure that you have extras on hand. So the second thing that you need to know to keep your scoby and your kombucha safe is you don't want to wash your containers with soap. They should always be glass containers, so it's number 3. But make sure that you don't wash them with soap, because the residue can be left on them and then it'll be harmful for your scoby. Now, you might be wondering, what should you wash your containers with? Well, you can use the kombucha, but because my kombucha has a little bit more sugar in it than others might, I like to use just a plain white vinegar because it has the same sort of acidity as the kombucha, little bit more, but it's gonna do the same job because vinegar has cleaning properties, as most of us already know. So, let's see. So you can see our little guy down here. He's kind of floating. I don't know. He matches with the rest of the liquid pretty well. But he's just hanging out right now. Over a couple of days, he'll pop back up to the surface. So the next thing that we want to do to protect our scoby and our kombucha is we want to cover it. So you can use a cheesecloth. I have this cloth that I had for canning and stuff like that, and so I just cut it up into squares, and then I'm gonna put that on the lid of my kombucha, and I'll fasten it down with a rubber band, and then I'll get ready and put this on top of my refrigerator, and I will leave it there for about 2 weeks. Now, I've heard people say that the longer you leave it to brew, the better. I've heard people say a month. My husband and I played around with it a little bit, and what we found is that we really like our kombucha at about a week and a half, 2 weeks, because anything longer than that leaves it a bit more acidic than what we would prefer. Now, the next step of this is that, or the next thing to know about this is that this is the initial fermentation process. With the initial fermentation process, this does not turn your kombucha into alcohol. So whenever this is done in a couple weeks or a month or whatever you decide, there will not be alcohol in this. So it's still an alcohol-free beverage for those of us who don't drink. The next step in this process, after you've let it sit for however long you feel comfortable with, is you're gonna go ahead and you'll take your rubber band off, you'll take your cloth off, you'll pull your scoby out, you'll probably save a cup of this liquid so that you can go ahead and do another batch. And then you're going to put a cap on this, and so for me, I'll just throw my lid on it. Now, for me, I don't drink alcohol. So at that point, whenever I put the lid on it, it goes straight in the refrigerator because I don't want there to be any alcohol. Now, if you want the carbonation and you don't mind a low alcohol content, then whenever you put your lid on, you can throw it back up on top of the refrigerator for a couple more weeks, and it will get the carbonation from the additional fermentation. But like I said, that's going to create alcohol in your kombucha, and that's not something that all of us would like to have. So, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please comment below, especially because this is like my first food or beverage video. So if you guys have any questions, if you want to see more videos, let me know. I was a professional chef for 8 years and I just started cooking again for a while. We'll see how that goes. It's just something different for a while. So if there's a recipe that you'd like to see me make, or you have questions about other kinds of, food or dishes, then make sure that you comment below. If you want to see more videos from me, please click subscribe. If I could talk, that's what I would say. And yeah, we'll see you next time.